malice towards none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right as God gives us to see the right, and let us strive on to finish the work we are in. A house divided against itself cannot stand. Public sentiment is everything. With public sentiment, nothing can fail. Without it, nothing can succeed. The probability that we may fail in the struggle ought not to deter us from the support of a cause we believe to be just. The dogmas of the quiet past are inadequate for the stormy present. The occasion is piled high with difficulty, and we must rise to the occasion. As our case is new, so we must think anew and act anew. The will of God prevails. In great contest, each party claims to act in accordance with the will of God. Both may be, and one must be, wrong. God cannot be for and against the same thing at the same time. In fact, in the present case, it is quite possible that God's purpose is something different from the purpose of either party. And yet, the human instrumentalities, working just as they do, are of the best adaptation to effect his purpose. Amen. The mayor has a few words of wisdom, words in memoriam to Fred Mooney, who passed away. And afterwards, I'd like to say a few words about Fred myself.
I'd like to ask for a moment of silence. Those of you who knew Fred Mooney, who passed away earlier this week, Fred was a long-time employee in the city of Brigantine, working in the recycling yard. And if you met Fred, you knew immediately how much he cared about his community, how much he cared about making whatever work he was involved in the best, and striving toward excellence in all that he did, and giving everyone a little pearl of wisdom when you came to the yard and dropped something off. Organizing that area in a way in which, quite frankly, I don't know if we'll ever see it organized as well as it was. Fred and Carol, very involved in our community. Fred, a man of many talents. You may have seen the roses on Revere Boulevard during the summer that he took great pride in. Carol, with her work in the Rams and with the Lions organization, and all that they have done to build this great community. So I ask that we remember Fred Mooney, a great man, a 30-year veteran of the Merchant Marine, and an integral part of our community, and someone we'll never forget. And remember Carol and his daughter Pam as they grieve his loss, but celebrate his life. So I'd ask for a moment of silence. Thank you.
Carol Mooney worked for me for many years, and in that capacity I came to know Fred, not just through Carol, but at the recycling center. He was indeed a special guy, always had a smile. Even though he might have seemed grumpy, he did his job, he did it well. We will miss him, we have missed him, and my deepest condolences to Carol and his family.
Thank you. We have no picture.
Is there a picture?
No picture. Sound. Okay. I think we have video now.
Do we? I think Johnny just wants to fix it.
Okay.
This could be our first official potty break.
Okay, just to advise that meeting notices covering this meeting have been sent and posted as required of the Open Public Meetings Act. The first order of business business is the approval of the executive session minutes of 1/5/14 and 2/5/14. So motion and second, please. Okay, any additions or deletions to the minutes? Okay, seeing none, can we have a roll call, please?
Simpson.
Yes.
McLeod. Yes. McCarty. Delivery.
Yes.
Kalila.
Yes.
Kern.
Yes.
Mayor Gunther.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, next we move to the approval of the requisition list, operating expenses, and payroll. Do we have a motion and second, please? Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, can we have roll call, please?
Simpson.
Yes.
McLeod. Yes. McCarty.
Yes.
Delivery.
Yes.
Kalila.
Yes.
Kern.
Yes.
Mayor Gunther.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, I'm going to open the meeting for public comment on agenda items only. So if you are going to comment, please limit your comments to items that are listed on the agenda. And please state your name and address for the record. And please keep in mind that we have a 5-minute limit for comments. State your name and address. Anyone who wants to comment on an agenda item. Mr. Fucci.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Just one quick comment on number 6. I would just ask that when you get to that point, that an explanation of the specific timeline that the ordinance is, the process of the ordinance in comparison to the timeline of the petition that we have on the table. That the explanation and the timeline of those two running together. Thank you.
Yes.
John, would you state your name and address for the record?
I'm sorry, John Pucci, 100 Sheridan Square. Thank you.
And when we do get to, before we get to ordinance number 6, when we have a motion and a second, I'm going to ask our solicitor to explain this ordinance and the timeline, because it is a little different than what we normally deal with. Okay, any other public comment on any items that are on the agenda? Yes, Sandy.
Sandra Williams, 105 10th Street North. I just wanted to give council an update on the progress of the petition. In the past 2 weeks, we have collected close to 400 more signatures, bringing our total close to 1,000, which is approaching a third of the vote from the election of 2012. And I also wanted to speak on something that I found. Some of the people that I spoke with that were concerned about signing the petition are mainly in support of a public safety director because they think it's going to lower taxes. Excuse me. But while researching the subject and some matters at hand, I noticed that a part-time fire department or a volunteer fire department would actually raise homeowners insurance. And that's something that people didn't seem too aware of. So I just wanted to get that, that piece of information out in the open for everyone to consider. Thank you.
Yes, John.
Mayor, City Council, thank you. My name is John Livesey. I'm at 203 9th Street North. And I just want to address the question about the Public Safety Director, if I may. I spent the afternoon looking at our city code, and specifically, there are a lot of duties and supervisory functions that the Director of Public Safety has, but to assume that he could take over, or she, that position could take over the responsibilities of overseeing or running the police and fire and beach patrol and public works departments, I think is ludicrous. There's a lot of other responsibilities of supervisory responsibilities that position holds. I'm not here to say we don't need a director of public safety, but what I am saying, and based on the code, is to think that that person can take the place of a chief, I think is ludicrous. I don't think that is where we need to go, and I think our code specifically says that our department, like the Department of Police, shall consist of the chief and of subordinate and intermediate officers. It doesn't say or, it says and. In each one of these departments, it includes a chief. So I just want to point that out to council. I'm sure people have read this more than I have and are probably more educated on it than I am. But in my opinion, it's just the wrong thing to do at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment on the agenda items only? Yes, Ms. Schindler.
Margaret Schindel, 834 West Shore Drive. It's my understanding that the elimination of the chiefs and replacing with public safety director was a cost-saving action. I ask the council, is that true?
The discussion, and you were not here in the early part of the discussion when we first brought up the idea of exploring whether or not to have a public safety director. The discussion did include consideration of whether it would be cost saving. That was never solely, it was never maybe the predominant reason. And the idea was also not to get rid of chiefs. The idea, as was explained many, many times by the city manager and by probably every member of this council, was to, in the unique situation we presented, to explore whether. I can't hear you. The idea was to explore in that unique situation which we presented, whether a public safety director was a viable and better alternative. That was it. There was never a program, plan, conspiracy, or anything else, because the chiefs, and in fact, we had chiefs. We had last summer in Beach Patrol a chief. We have right now in the police department a chief, and we had a chief from the time when we first started discussing back in March last year whether or not there should be a public safety director. There were people who served, however briefly, as the acting chief, was designated by the manager after Chief Halsey finally passed him. For whatever reason, they didn't continue in that position. So it's a misstatement to say that we have not had chiefs or that there was a plan to substitute one for the other. It was an exploration to see how things would coexist, they could coexist, and what would really make. So that's my thinking.
So cost cutting wasn't part of it?
No, cost cutting is a consideration.
Okay,
And there were different opinions on that.
okay.
One side is that if we had people at the top of the pay range with pensions and with health benefits versus a single person who is not getting health benefits and getting paid considerably less on states that make it cost saving. You know, there were other considerations and people brought something for attention. But it was never foregone.
I'm all for
Schindler,
cost saving.
If I could,
Yes.
I want to make very certain that you do not take Councilman Belutari's remarks as what my opinion of this entire situation was. Clearly, we have a very different recollection of what occurred. We do not have chiefs. We have an acting chief because of a court order. We do not have a chief in the fire department, and I don't believe we had a chief in the beach patrol. I think we had someone who was a captain or an assistant chief, but not a chief. But along with that, we've had all kinds of analysis done whether or not the public safety director will save money in that capacity, and my estimation is no. We've had a lot of discussion about the merits of having chiefs and doing away with that particular position. So I don't want Councilman Belutari's remarks to characterize my thinking or the discussion that I've been engaged in over the last 8 months.
Well, I think I get it that you have different opinions about just about everything, so that's okay. Thank you, Mayor. With that cost-cutting thing in mind, Dr. Kern, could you please clarify something for me that you said last meeting about the $600,000 plus that, and the reference to supporting 8 living chiefs?
10 chiefs.
Okay, well, could you elaborate on?
I don't have that document with me, but if you add up their
Is that,
That's what
are you saying that's the city's payment to it?
No. That's what they are receiving.
Okay.
They receive that from the state because the state administers the pension fund. But to make it sound like the state pays for the pension is absolutely incorrect.
No, I was just trying to clarify that it wasn't the city.
Towards their pension.
Right,
The employee pays towards their pension.
right.
And the income from their investments, the pension bureau investments also pays. But the bulk of those payments certainly come from the time that they are employed with the city. And as a matter of fact, we paid $1.7 million in 2003, coming in 2013, to the Police Environment Retirement Fund and another $500,000 to the Public Employees Retirement System. So altogether, the city paid $2.2 million last year towards the retirement of various firemen and public employees.
Was any of that catching up for payments that had not been made in the past? Does anybody know?
Well, there was a hiatus that the state took, but that's made up. But I'm not sure I understand the analogy.
Excuse me 1 minute. I think the public can see us now, but they can't hear council.
Oh.
So if you want to wait just a second so everybody can hear from home, I'll see where Johnny went.
Potty break. Here he comes.
They can't hear council now, but they can see the picture.
Once they're done.
We might be able to soon.
Yeah, there we go.
We're good to go?
I think so, the lights came on, so
Okay.
it should be good.
Call somebody, though.
Ms. Schindel, if and I'll let you go on, but I want to ask Dr. Kern, just I'm not sure if I understand the analogy, but go ahead.
Okay, I lost my place. All right. Sorry. I just wanted to ask Councilman DeLucre having to do with the petitions. In the article that was in the paper today, and some of it's quotes and some of it's just the report, it says something about that you, Councilman, said the petitions have become a way to short-circuit the democratic process. Do you believe that is true?
Yeah, I think petitions can certainly be misused, and one of the particular mischiefs of this particular type of petition, because it dates back quite a number of years in our government, is that unlike other forms of petition where if a matter is going to be presented to the public, it's presented to the public at the general election when, as we all know in common experience, the greatest number of people go out to vote, this type of petition, if council does not ultimately act to adopt the ordinance as requested, then it goes to a special election. Special elections inherently, in my view, are anti-democratic because the reality is people don't turn out for special elections. Very small turnouts. You can look at the history of that. So you have kind of a combination of things where a small percentage of the number of people who voted in the last election is required to get something before council and then ultimately onto the ballot. And that percentage is a small percentage. I understand Ms. Williams tonight indicated they have more signatures on the petition. But remember, of the, I forget the exact number, somewhere in the 6,000 some range of registered voters in town, you only have to go by the number who voted at the last election, which, as it happened, was a very low number. So you have then, in this case, I think, playing out the very thing that I object to generally, which is a relatively small number of people end up forcing legislation on everyone else, and the consequence, if the governing body elects not to go along with that, is that there is a special election, and special elections, again, the reality of them is they do not get turnout. So that is my belief. And also, with regard to the other petition that most recently was circulated, and which was not moved forward because it was defective, that petition sought to change the form of government completely when, we have elections every 2 years. You can change the form of government by changing the people in it. If people genuinely believe that it was the structure of our government, the city or the council manager structure that was at fault, well, it's interesting how people came to that realization all of a sudden when we've had it for 20-plus years.
Thank you. I found it curious, though. I looked up the definition of the democratic process. Does anybody know the definition? Council?
What?
Quote, "The right to petition elected officials for redress of grievances, due process." So it seems like the people in the city are exercising their right to democratic process, not to be offensive. They just have a different opinion, as you have different opinions. So, I mean, we can't just sit in the corner and we should participate, is what I'm saying. I think that you must admire that the people in your city would have a civic responsibility and participate. In fact, I wish that all of your children and your parents and your clergymen could be here. They do watch, and they do hear everything you say. But I wish they could be here so that you would be able to give them the civics lesson that you can provide, because it's very valuable. This is only the second time I've been here, but I've watched a lot. So thank you. I appreciate it. I hope that we can parade on Mr. Howard to remember what it was like to be a policeman and fight to get rid of the public safety director when he was a policeman, because he knew it was the right thing, and maybe he could just resign and save us all this trouble. Thank you.
Okay, any other, yes, Mr. Mackey?
Good job, John.
Now we sound a little loud there.
James Mackey, 1325 Varden Road. Miss Schindel did a great job, and she stole some of my thunder. But I find it amazing that in the First Amendment, the freedom to petition is in there. And individuals have the right to petition the government in order to express their views and ask for change. The founders brought with them a strong tradition of petitioning government in the face of tyranny. The Magna Carta included limited protection for petitioning, and the Petition of Right reminded the king that he was not above the law. Founders like John Dickinson urged the colonists to petition the British Crown rather than separate from England. The Declaration of Independence charged the king with ignoring these petitions. Quote, "In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury." Unquote. Throughout American history, citizens have exercised and fought for this amendment right, this First Amendment right. John Quincy Adams fought for years to convince Congress to repeal the gag order and hear thousands of anti-slavery petitions. Historical leaders, including Angelina Grimke, Susan B. Anthony, and Martin Luther King Jr., encouraged citizens to petition the government to expand political and civil rights. Petitioning government is a method of individual efficacy that all citizens can use in their daily life, okay? Now, Mr. Duke-Lucre brought up that only a small amount of people showed up for this last election, that we elected the governor and our assembly and our senators. I believe in Brigantine that was 25%. So 15% of the electorate had to sign that petition. Am I correct? Are my numbers right?
15% of the 25%.
Am I
who
correct,
voted.
Ms. Sweeney? 25% voted, right, in this last election?
I don't know about that number, I know it's 15%.
Right, 15%. So if we use, you know, your logic, that means 12.1% of the people had the majority in this last election, had 12.1% voted a certain way. And you said that was illegal and unworkable. But 15% of the residents of Brigantine who are eligible voters actually signed the petition. So there's actually more voters that signed the petition that actually could have swung an election here in November. So I just wanted to point that out.
No, it's 15% of the 25% who voted in the
Correct.
election.
What's that? No,
So that
what I'm
comes-
saying is out of the 100%, out of the 6,000 registered voters,
25% voted.
correct.
So 15% of that 25% is what was needed to pass the petition.
But 12% of the people, well, 12.1% can actually elect an official. Okay, so if you're saying that this vast majority of people, you know, elect our representatives, that's bogus. And to say that, that having 15% of the electorate, and I believe it's 15% of the 6,000, am I correct, Ms. Sweeney?
No.
Or 15% of the
Of the people who voted.
people who voted?
50% of the people that voted in the general election in November,
Okay,
which was 3,090.
okay, so you had 3,000 people. But still, only 12, if you want to start with numbers, you can cut numbers any way you want. The thing is, the people have the right to petition, and to call it illegal and unworkable is not the democratic process. And you're all elected under democratic rules. Let's follow our federal, state, and local constitutions. Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Mackey, before you sit down. You've used the phrase illegal and unworkable about 3 times. To whom are you attributing that? And I should say, if you're looking at me, misattributing that, because that was a comment that had nothing to do with the petition. That was a comment that had to do with the manner in which the majority of council was being urged to approach the ongoing contract negotiations. Completely different subject. So leaving aside whatever math you would like us to consider, I never said anything at all about the petition process being illegal or unworkable. I expressed my reservations about it. I certainly recognize the First Amendment and people's right to petition.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Evening, Jim Conti, 108 North Roosevelt Boulevard. I'm not the smartest guy in the world, so I'd like to get an explanation, if I may. One is abolishing the public safety's position. We're going to have a motion tonight. You're going to vote on this.
Yes.
Now, if you vote on not to have the public safety director, last meeting I was at, it voted 5-2 not to have the chiefs. So
No?
I thought they voted
No,
not
we
having the
voted,
chiefs.
the motion that I made and Councilman Simpson seconded was to do away with the position of the public safety director.
Okay, but I mean, right, but I mean, we no public safety director as of tonight, and you have no chiefs, if this gets voted.
Right.
So now you have no chiefs, no public safety director. So
Well,
what,
that's not the process. The process tonight would be to introduce the ordinance. The
Okay.
ordinance would then be introduced. At our next meeting, we would have a public hearing on that ordinance. If in fact the ordinance passed at that meeting, it would become effective 20 days after it was published. After the ordinance was published, it would be effective 20 days after that. And then there would be if it were successful, there would be a vacancy. At that point, there would not be a public safety director. If it is defeated in 2 weeks, then it goes to the voters in a special election. Is that correct?
well, the petition that's going circling around now,
Right.
I understand the woman come up here and said they have any more.
Right.
more
It's already
mem-
been certified. They had enough signatures to
Okay,
get...
so that means that we'd have to have an election for that, right? Put on a ballot to be voted upon that?
There are
No?
2 things that can happen. One is that council has an opportunity to vote on the on the petition ordinance, if you will.
Okay.
That's what's before us tonight. So we can vote tonight to introduce it. 2 weeks from now, we would have a public hearing like we do on any other ordinance, on that specific ordinance. If it passes in 2 weeks, 20 days after it's published, it would then become the law, and we would not have a public safety director. If in fact council votes it down either tonight or in 2 weeks, it would go on the ballot as a question in a special election for everyone to vote on.
Okay. Also, I like that, I had asked, Councilman talked earlier about, with the woman up here about not having chiefs to save money. It was brought up, everything. You made a statement that he doesn't speak for you, your opinion, everything. Every meeting I came to, it's been thrown out what this individual makes of $70,000. No one has broken it down, at least I haven't, because I write down things, everything, and I haven't seen it yet. What is a chief going to cost? In other words, if you go outside, as Dr. Kern talked one time about having qualified people within, if you go outside, if you hire a chief, and that's $80,000, well, that's more than what he just made. If you promote within, how much is that going to cost? And I understand what you just said, but no one gives you a figure. Everybody says, well, I don't think it's going to cost that much. I think it's going to save us money. Why don't you just throw a figure out there and break it down so everybody understands that this man makes 70. If we have to fight the petition, it's going to cost another 30. We'll just say that's $100,000 to bring chiefs in. If we bring chiefs back, this is what a chief's going to cost us. Black and white. It's going to cost $100,000 one way, $80,000 one way. We save $20,000 if we bring the chiefs back.
Right.
If we don't bring the chiefs, it's going to cost us $20,000. Why don't you just put it down black and white and just say, instead of saying, well, I don't think like that, or I don't care about that, or I don't feel that way, break it down. This way people home can see what the financial numbers are. That's all anybody wants to see, because, I mean, you know, all they do is keep on saying about him, well, he's only $70,000.
Okay, do you want me to answer?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Okay.
So I can understand, I mean, I won't
Now,
take too
I
much
won't,
time.
I won't have exact numbers in front of me because I don't have them in front of me. But there are different ways to do this analysis, and we've seen that. There are competing numbers out there. There are different analyses that have been done. So the way I look at it is this. First of all, Mr. Howard's salary as proposed in the salary ordinance is from 70 to 105.
But he makes 70.
Right. There is, as he becomes full-time and becomes the permanent person, I would bet that he would probably go to 105 because he's not going to be supervising people that are making much more than he is. But even though they would make, some of them make more than he would at 105. That's just my own opinion. I don't know that for sure. What we also have is the difference, in my mind, the difference is between what a captain is paid and what a chief is paid. If you promote a captain to a chief, you have a 15% differential. You also have a differential if you promote another person from their position into a captain or a lieutenant's position. So that is a cost. However, that doesn't mean all those positions have to be filled. But in my mind, the difference is if you need to hire a new person coming in the door, if you need that staffing, that cost has to be quantified. I don't know if you do or not at this point. The difference that I see is a difference between a captain and a chief's salary. And if there are any other promotions as a result of that. That's the way I look at it.
Well, I don't have it with me tonight, unfortunately, but they had the salaries in the paper at one time. If we just go 10%, and I know one man who would be promoted was making 129. So say if he makes 120, 10% of that is $12,000 for that one individual. Plus now you got to add to his pension, because his pension's greater if he gets promoted.
Yes, there is additional cost.
So already you went up right there. Now you're not talking about no overtime on top of that either. That man don't make no overtime.
Right.
So this is what I'm saying. What you're saying is short, but you know, it's not giving the whole, that's why I said we're not seeing the whole picture here.
Right.
Because you have to add the 10%, you have to add their pension increases when they get promoted, you have to add their overtime in.
Well, they don't
You don't get no overtime, you don't get no pension.
Chiefs don't get overtime
Oh,
either.
they don't get no overtime?
No, they do not.
I apologize. I didn't
And,
know that. I'm
you know,
sorry.
if you factor into the analyses, right now, the numbers that I've seen do not include health benefits for the public safety director. You can't do an analysis based on a person who happens to be there at that particular time. Obviously, you have to provide health benefits for someone if they come in and they don't have them. It's the law. So you have to you can't factor that in for everybody who may sit in that chair at any given time.
Yeah, well, I'm just basing it on this individual. 'cause
You
he's
can't.
got- I thought he
If
has
you-
benefits. We don't
But
give
if
him no
you
benefits.
create a position, you cannot cost that position out with an individual who happens to be in that position at that time. Mr. Howard has a resume that may afford him an opportunity to go somewhere else. He could leave tomorrow and someone could come in who doesn't have health benefits and you have to pay those. So, all those things have to be factored in, but that's how I came up with my analysis.
Okay.
And my analysis may be different than other people's analysis, but the other point is, I'm hearing, and I heard again tonight, that we have chiefs and that we support having chiefs. So we may have a situation where you have both. Maybe there's an option where you have both the public safety director and the chiefs. And to be honest with you, I don't support that in this climate. I know I've been criticized because there was a time when we had a public safety director, but we had chiefs at that time. It was a different era, and there were a different set of problems that the city was addressing at that time. And the individual who was in that position also did other things. They didn't just do that. They were, the individual was a zoning officer as well. So let's deal with what's in front of us right now, and that's how I came up with my position, on the situation. And that doesn't take into account, with all the financial issues aside, the operational issues that exist and will continue to exist with the absence of a chief, which clearly there are gray areas that are ripe for additional litigation, and I don't know how you quantify that going forward, but there are statutory powers for the chief of police that only the chief can do. There are things that only a fire chief can do, and the beach patrol is an operation that you need a leader on the beach who understands the beach and has come through that system and understands what water rescues are all about. It's the biggest department in the city and deals with probably the largest concentration of people during the summer. So they are my feelings about those positions, and that's how I came up with my position overall on the issue.
All right, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Yes, Vince? Vince, if you state your name and address for the record?
Absolutely. Vince Era, 912, excuse me, 912 Saracen Road. I'm pretty sure by now that everybody knows my position on the public safety director. One of the things I think is important to think about is how we got to this position. We can spin statistics any way we want. We can talk about percentages. I don't think the percentages really matter. I think the important fact we need to look at is that roughly 500 people were willing to put their name on a document and publicly state how they feel about an issue. And regardless of whether that represents a majority, a minority, or however you want to spin it, it's still a number and a significant number of citizens in this town who want to see some type of change. The issue that I find is I go out and talk to people, and this is unsolicited. This isn't me going out trying to find people. People come up to me, and here's what I find, and I think it's important for everyone to hear. People are frustrated with the fact that this governing body is unable to make a decision. It's been over a year. It's been over, and I'll say it's been about a year that we've been discussing this issue. We failed to move forward in any direction. So what you're seeing with this petition is a situation where if the governing body can't make a decision, then the people are ready to step in and make a decision. Whether it's to keep the public safety director or to remove the public safety director, people of this town want to see this move on. There are more important and pressing issues that need to be dealt with. There are people who are seriously suffering in this town because of the economy, because of lack of opportunity for jobs and things like that. And I know that you might not have the ability or the responsibility to take care of those things, but that's what becomes really important to individuals. So they become very frustrated and very angry when they see meeting after meeting, month after month, nothing happen. And that's where we are today. So this petition is about saying, if you're unable to make a decision, put it in the hands of the people, let us decide, let us move on. There's better things to spend our time on. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else would like to comment on any items on the agenda? Yes, Mrs. Shin.
I'm sorry, I forgot. He's taller than I am. I was really glad that Councilman DeLucre said that, you know, what you said about not being exclusively about the money issue and everything. And when I was sitting thinking about this meeting today, I was thinking about scenarios, you know, when you have a business, whether it's a big business or a small business. There has to be somebody, you know, who is the head of the business, who takes the responsibility, ultimately makes the decisions, and is accountable. And when I picture the police and the fire and the beach patrol, that's what I see we need. We need somebody, one person in each one of those that's accountable. Not just the person that's going to be collecting the pension and all that stuff. Well, yeah, okay, that's part of it. But there's got to be somebody who's responsible for everybody else who's doing that job and will be held accountable. Just like you would want to have somebody accountable in your businesses. You know how to run businesses. So I really think we need those chiefs back so that the departments can run at optimum performance.
Ms. Fennell, may I ask you a question?
Yes.
And I could not agree with you more about accountability. But let's take accountability a step further. Not just accountability.
I can't hear you.
Let's take accountability a step further. Not just accountability within a department, but accountability from the department to others in the chain of command of the city.
Mhm.
Would you agree with me that it would be a cause of concern if people publicly and repeatedly disrespected those who are above them in the chain of command? Do you think that undermines the effectiveness of an organization?
Well, I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, as I have been. I think there is an incredible level of disrespect to go all around. The people who were here before did things that were maybe foolish, that you didn't agree with, that I didn't agree with. The same thing happens now. You know, you all had mothers. 2 wrongs don't make a right. So don't have a tug of war over this. You know, think about it. I don't want disrespect. I don't think anybody should be doing that. I think that I don't care if it's Mayor Gunther, if it's Philip Gunther in that chair, or if it's Dan Howard in that chair. Whoever sits in that chair is the mayor. And I was raised that you always had respect, especially in a public forum. And by the way, Dr. Kern, thank you for the things that you read at the beginning of this meeting. We should all be embracing that. I don't know, but let's quit the disrespect and the vitriol when we speak to each other. Again, I said it before, if your priest was sitting in this front row, or your mother, or your children, speak to each other that you would make them proud of you. And make me proud of you, because I'm old enough to be some of your mother.
Thank you, Ms. Sin.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other public comment on agenda items? Yes, Mr. Marcosi. Okay.
Emilio Marcosi, 4101 Atlantic Brigantine Boulevard. Again, I'm a registered Republican, a member of the Brigantine Taxpayers Association, and a citizen of Brigantine for nigh on 50 years now. I understand that, I don't understand, and I didn't hear that anyone was condemning the right or not giving the right of anybody to petition council. I understand that there's a process, and that process is either ongoing or completed. Now there may be a special election. If, in fact, these people who are pushing this special election really have the goodwill or the good of the city taxpayers in mind, won't you consider, in the event that the election or that the petition is valid, not to have it now, but have it during the general election. We're talking about saving 10,000, 20,000. I understand, and I've heard over the local radio even, that the expense might be as high as $60,000. Why not use good common sense and say we can postpone this until the general election in November and save that money? There are special interests in this city who are only and mainly interested in how they're going to be paid. Unions have, in fact, have a history. Look at Detroit, of where they could run ramshackle over anybody and destroy the economy. We're not looking to do that here. If they really have the interest of the people of Brigantine, postpone it until November, and this way everybody, and as you know, you don't want a special election where only special interests really get out there and push. Let's have it at the general election where the general population can indulge and will participate. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marcosi. And I'm not sure of the timing of that. I'd have to ask our solicitor, but there's one option actually that would cost the citizens nothing, and that is in 2 weeks, council could vote to endorse this ordinance, do away with the public safety director, and it would not cost anything other than having a regular council
Aren't you
meeting.
being a bit facetious? You
No,
know
I'm
that
being
that's
actually
not what
factual.
their intention is. We're allowing the people to have a petition, have their say. What I'm asking them, if they have the interest of the citizens of Brigantine and not their own personal selfish interests, to do it during a general election in November. It doesn't cost anybody a quarter.
But legally,
Yes,
the first stop is what's happening right here today.
okay.
To introduce an ordinance. This petition is about an ordinance, so we're introducing an ordinance. If it is introduced tonight, that would be the first step in the process. The second step would be in 2 weeks, it would have a public hearing and a vote again from council. That process costs the taxpayers nothing, is what I'm saying. That is the legal process that we're going through.
Right.
Now, your question about can it be postponed until November, I don't think so. I think there are timelines that are established in statute, but I will defer to the solicitor.
The overall timelines begin with the filing of the petition, and more importantly, when it is certified. Lynn, we certified this on, your office certified on what, February 4?
I believe somewhere around there.
Yeah, it was, it wasn't 2 weeks ago today, it was 2 weeks ago yesterday. I believe it was Tuesday of that week. Upon the certification, council then has 20 days to act on, in this case, the ordinance, on the substantive issue presented by the petition. In this case, that is a request to pass an ordinance that would eliminate the public safety director. So there's a 20-day clock that begins upon certification. Tonight's event is within that 20 days. If this council passes on first reading this ordinance tonight, they will be within the time frame provided for in the statute. Now, technically, the statute says council has to act within 20 days. You have a little bit of an inconsistency statutorily because you simply do not have enough time to get to the second reading within that 20-day window. Given the normal rotation of council meetings, to get to the second reading, it's going to take more than the 20 days. However, the initial action of council will take place tonight within the 20 days. In my analysis, that perfects the requirement in the statute. They're acting within 20 days. If it is passed tonight, they'll be back in 2 weeks. And if they then come back in 2 weeks and pass it on second reading, then the result is obvious. It has the content of the petition has been adopted by council. Admittedly, there's another 20-day lag time at that point because it does not become effective until 20 days after there is publication of the fact that it passed on second reading. So the effective date gets pushed back, but that is inherent in the ordinance process. If it is passed tonight and council returns in 2 weeks and fails to pass it on second reading, my analysis would be that that is a failure to do what was presented within the approved petition, and that the remedies that would flow from the statute would be in play. That remedy being a special election. The special election is to take place within 30 to 60 days following the expiration of the 20 days. And again, I've already commented that the 20 days becomes somewhat artificial because of the amount of time, but it would be my opinion that upon the failure to pass on second reading, 2 weeks from tonight, it would trigger a 30 to 60 day clock for the election, and that is by statute. To the extent that there's a suggestion that could we get to the general election, statutorily, I don't see how you get there. I think you are compelled to basically have within 30 to 60 days following the failure of council to act upon the content of the petition, you are at a special election.
Is it possible that the petitioners themselves can withdraw the petition in event, and therefore allow that certain amount of time if they really have the interest of the citizens of Brigantine at heart?
To answer your question from a statutory point of view,
Yes.
and again, not a public opinion point of view, but from a statutory point of view,
Yes, sir.
if there is a failure of the council to act upon the content of the petition, the petitioners have 10 days to reconsider their position and make various amendments. Would the ability to withdraw it entirely reside within those things that they could do within the 10 days? I have not seen anything in the statute that would prohibit that. But please understand, I am speaking from an interpretation of the statute, not from a public perception or public opinion point of view, but yeah, there is a 10-day window following the failure of council when the Committee on Petitions can take some other action.
So then it is possible.
The way you are asking me that question, is it possible, upon a failure of council to undertake the appropriate action, is it possible that the Committee on Petitions could take an alternative action? Statutorily, the answer to that question is yes.
Thank you.
Okay, any other, on agenda items only? Mike? I won't forget.
Mike Snyder, 10 Beach Cove, Brigantine. Has council entertained or looked into the possibility of sitting down with the possible candidates for chiefs in all these different departments and speaking to them and explaining to them the situation that our city, our state, and our country's in, and that they might possibly step up to the plate as chief and maintain the same pay scale that they were in at the time, as captain, as lieutenant, as anything to that effect? Does anybody actually, if that were the case and somebody stepped up to the plate and you guys saw them worthy as being a chief, and they were willing to do it for the same pay that they were getting, would that make sense? Would that be
Fred,
something?
I believe there's a statutory,
I think it's a 12%. No, I'm not the labor council,
Yeah.
but there is.
My understanding, it's not mandatory, the difference between captain and chief.
Okay. Then let Jennifer go.
We do have officers in charge, and we had asked that the officers in charge stay at their same pay rate as the captains. Pay, actually, today, we just had a hearing, which we lost that and had to pay the 12% differential. So that's not an option for us, and that was from the union coming back and asking for the additional pay.
I mean, I've actually spoken to some of these people, and I think it's actually something that's doable. And if we try to communicate with them directly and as a whole and as a body, and a couple of Democrats and a couple of Republicans sit at a table, it's a possibility. And if not,
Well,
then we know where we stand.
We asked that, and we tried to enforce that, and the union sued, and for the 12%.
Not the union, let's talk to the people, or the candidates that we're talking about.
That's who's involved, and actually the candidates
And try to
are the
bypass
union
this whole
representatives.
third parties. I mean, they can be party to the conversation.
No, the conversations all happened before they got their lawyers involved.
But
And when
it's
they
still
said-
possible. I mean, I've spoken with people. I've spoken with people.
Right, but Mike, we did ask that, and we still actually mandated that they do take on those responsibilities. Not as the chiefs, but officer in charge, and they still wanted the pay as the chief, and they won that. And that was not the lawyers, that was actually the members of the bargaining unit who happened to be in those positions.
But if
And that just happened actually today, the final ending of it that's been going on for months.
Came to you with information and with statements from these people that they'd be willing to do so, would
If
you
they
entertain
have,
that?
absolutely, if they have written
Would that be
statements,
something the
but
council would entertain?
that's outside of the scope of council because it's a personnel issue.
That's prohibited. Council cannot negotiate as a body.
If these participants came forward and
They would have to come forward to Ms.
without
Blumen.
having
To Ms.
nego-
Blumen. to
wouldn't
Ms.
be a
Blumen.
negotiation, it'd be them coming forward and stating that they'd be willing to work at the same pay rate or
I'm sure that we would all
make
be
an offer to you.
happy to hear it, but it would go through Ms. Blumenthal's office. She's the city administrator.
Would council be satisfied with something to that effect?
Well, Mike, if there was somebody who was interested in doing something along those lines, they're always free to talk to the manager. If the manager was in a position or had made a decision that she wanted to make an appointment of one of those people and whatever, agreements they had reached could be factored in, I'm saying if they could be, because there are legal considerations, and as Jennifer pointed out, the union has taken a position opposite what you're being told. But let's assume that could all be done. If Jennifer came to us and said, I'm thinking of appointing X to this position, she brings those things to us. So in presenting it to us, I'm sure she would point out the pros and cons. And if one of the pros was that the person was willing to forego an additional compensation, I'm sure we factor that in.
Would you guys entertain that? Would you?
Well, certainly we'd entertain it and would work on any type of agreement that would result in savings for the city of Brigantine. But I think you have to negotiate in an atmosphere of stability. What are people negotiating for? If there's going to be a chief's position, that changes the conversation. Right now, there isn't.
But,
So,
maybe we need to.
we don't know what they have. They don't know what they have. So if we have an atmosphere of stability, if this council comes back and says, we have confidence in chiefs, we're going to have chiefs in these departments, we're not going to have a public safety director, and then we can talk to people about what the salary is for chief, that makes a heck of a lot more sense than we're not sure what we have. We have an interim public safety director, we have an acting chief, we have someone in the fire department, I guess, who's the officer in charge, and the beach patrol guy was the chief, but don't call him the chief because we can't call him a chief because we have acting chiefs. So how do you negotiate? Be honest with you, if I'm sitting on the other side of the table, I don't know what my title is, and quite frankly, this council's got to square those issues away before we can ask anybody to agree to anything. And right now, we don't have an atmosphere of stability.
But maybe if we had some proposals from some of these candidates, where they'd be willing to do what's good for the city.
And Mike, I agree, but I don't think you're going to get a proposal until they know what they're proposing for. Right now, they have no idea.
People have to make steps.
Right.
The alternative is they may never be a chief. They may never be this. Things are going to change.
Yep.
Pensions aren't secure in this state, in this country. They need to know for the long term. It's we have to make changes, and and if we can talk to them and they're willing to make changes, I think it's a step in the right direction. And we have some very highly qualified people that we can work with within, but they need to work with us as well.
I agree.
And if you guys can't, if I can talk to them and they're willing to make a proposal, I want to know that you guys will entertain it, and I'm not wasting my time.
No, I think that would be excellent. And just to be a little bit more clear, when we asked the person, this employee, to do the officer in charge for no additional pay, the employee said no and went to the union, who came and sued us. It wasn't us negotiating with the union. It was us asking the employee who was interested in the position. But any help that you can be, if they would like to put something in writing, of course we'd entertain that. That would be showing very great concern for this community. We appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
But
Mike,
being the officer in charge is very different than being the chief. And there are...
Mike, just if I
Right,
may.
but I guess my point is they wanted the same pay as a chief, even though they were officer in
They're
charge.
doing the chief's job.
Not necessarily, like you said, it's different being officer in charge than being the chief.
I just want to make a comment in regards to the comments that Mike made. That's welcome news. Unfortunately, there hasn't been a whole lot of dialogue in that regard between the departments and the city manager. Having said that, there is a void, and for some reason that void hasn't been able, to have been bridged, so to speak. We've reached out to both departments, myself, Councilman Kern and Councilman DeLucre, because we agree there has to be an end to the void. So those individuals that you're speaking to, because I think we all welcome there being a resolution to which direction we're going, they should really have a heart-to-heart with the city manager. And if there is a willingness, and also, Mike, I'm not a believer in succession that an individual should automatically become the chief because he has the most amount of time in or he's the most highest ranking officer. I think that the individual with the best ability, and we have a void there as well because there were individuals who were asked to be put in that position and declined. So there is a lot of underlying reasons why we find ourselves in the position that we're in. And I want the public to understand that it's not, you know, us having a disagreement. We've stated from the beginning, when the 3 chiefs retired, that we were embarking on a mission to research whether or not a public safety director would be the right way for us to go. I personally made a decision a long time ago that public safety director wasn't in the best interest as far as I'm concerned. So, you know, the public needs to know that there have been reasons why the position hasn't been filled. And I'm glad to hear that there are individuals that, and hopefully they're the individuals that are qualified, because not everyone is qualified to be a chief.
I agree.
But and I do believe that we have, you know, people in our departments that are qualified.
And
So
it,
I just
might
want to make that
possibly be a
statement.
candidate that's-
I'm glad to hear that there are individuals reaching out to you, and hopefully they'll reach out to the city manager.
I'm glad to hear that you guys will entertain that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Yes, sir.
Chris Tate, 505 Hackney Place. I've spoken a couple times at council meetings, and just to reiterate, I think I bring a different perspective to the table in that we were summer people here for a couple years, and we're so drawn to the community of Brigantine that we decided to take the plunge and move down full-time. Couldn't be happier with our decision. This is a great community, and I want to see it continue to be a great community. You know, it's interesting, Dr. Kern, you invoked Lincoln in your opening address, and what everyone always associates with Lincoln is leadership. Now, I work in the business world. We have 3 divisions of our company. We have leaders for each one of those divisions. There's group benefits, there's retirement, and there's investments. If we had one guy overseeing all those, it would be a nightmare. You know, we have no leeway like a city government does or a community does. Wall Street would take us to task immediately because those divisions would fail. So I think what a lot of this comes down to is, you know, a lack of leadership in each of those departments. And if you have one person overseeing it that's maybe a jack of all trades but a master of none, I think each one of those departments is going to suffer due to that lack of leadership. Councilman Kern, you had mentioned you know, undermining the chain of command. You know, that goes to attitude. Attitude is a function of leadership. When you don't have leadership, you have poor attitudes. You know, looking at wanting this island to remain the same, and before I moved my wife and my 3 daughters here, you know, our #1 concern was safety. And Brigantine is an incredibly safe community. You know, obviously there's costs involved, and we can debate the merits of having a public safety director or not having a public safety director, but I don't think you can debate the merits of having individual accountability under each of those 3 silos. You know, you look at it from an explicit cost standpoint, you know, of course the salaries and the pensions, and we can go round and round about the numbers, but also an implicit cost standpoint. You know, you look at career path, is if you can't rise to the level of chief, you know, if there's fewer captains or good candidates in the police force, the fire department, and the beach patrol, going to choose Brigantine as a place to apply their trade. They're not. They're going to look for other communities. You know, during this past weekend, we took a trip down the coast. We were in Sea Isle, we were in Avalon, tumbleweeds rolling down the streets. Those communities are dead. There used to be vibrant communities there. They can't even keep an elementary school open now in Sea Isle. I don't want to see that happen to Brigantine. You know, another thing, you know, Councilman DeLucre, I believe you said it was anti-democratic was the word you used. You know, we could argue semantics here. Brother, this is democracy 101. This is the people that signed up, signed their name to it, feel passionately about this community. I'm frankly offended that you think this isn't a part of the democratic process. You don't have a democracy without the law. The rule of law is paramount. And this is all part of the law. This is completely legal. And the only reason we're here is that we have an interim public safety director that's been interim for months and months and months. Imagine if your favorite baseball team fired their manager with 2 months left in the season and went to spring training, pitchers and catchers. He's still our interim manager. You know, that's a lack of leadership. So the only reason we're here now and, you know, not wanting to cost additional dollars to the city of Brigantine was council's inaction on this. You know, if you decided to go a certain way and have a public safety director and no chiefs, then take a stand, you know, take a position, state it, and give your reasons why. Instead of dragging it out, I found it very peculiar that a lot of the contract negotiations are going on at this same time this is being dangled over everyone's head. So, you know, I think also in those Lincoln comments, he said, a house divided will fall, and you know, I think it's time for some action one way or another, up and down vote. If council wants to, you know, vote no, then we take it to the people, and that's about the least anti-democratic thing I think you can do.
I explained before what I meant by my comments, so I'm not going to repeat that. Let me point out, you mentioned that attitude is a function of poor leadership, and specifically, I assume you mean poor attitude. The fact that we've had an interim public safety director is, in and of itself, really of no moment. The issue is, what have the people who are the presumptive chiefs, people who have told us, and people have told us, because as Councilman Palello noted, we met with representatives of both departments, and one of the messages that came through loud and clear was that not just that there had to be chiefs, but they had to be the chiefs basically of their designation, people who they felt, for whatever reasons, are deserving of that. What happens if the persons who are, in fact, at this moment in time, whether you like the fact there's a public safety director, interim or otherwise, there's always going to be a city manager, and the city manager is always going to be above those departments. What is the city manager, as the appointing authority, to make of it when she can observe week after week, month after month, total disrespect and lack of cooperation in the departments directed toward her and directed towards the interim director of public safety? Is that somehow not to be visited or to be the responsibility of the people who are doing that? Do they not have an innate, inherent professional responsibility to honor the chain of command? And if they're not happy about the fact that there's not a chief, there are ways to express that, and there are ways to try and address that. And you might not get what you want. But I can tell you as a member of council, I didn't come into this with any preconceptions other than the fact that I knew historically, in my entire lifetime here, we've always had chiefs of police, and as far as I knew, chiefs of all departments, I'm sorry, and as far as I knew, that worked. The reasons why we even went to an interim director of public safety, and you know, I'm sure, that when the discussion started, there was no director of public safety appointed, interim or otherwise. That happened months later as a result of a lot of different factors coming together. Then the discussion over the intervening months, to the extent there was discussion that was of any substance that would help us make decisions, and there wasn't much of that, but the discussion said, make a choice. Well, the petition doesn't say make a choice. The petition makes the choice that there cannot be the choice of a public safety director.
Because you haven't made the choice.
So
Because
effectively,
this has gone on for months.
in fact, I understand. I've been here. I've seen it, and what I've been doing, among other things, over that period of time, is I have been watching the interaction of the departments, and specifically the department heads, with our director of public safety and with the city manager. I don't make the appointments, but when appointments are made, they're going to be made by the manager, and she's going to do it in consultation with the council. I look, Jay, hear me out. I look for indications that people who would be the chief and who would be the head of the department understand and can accept and can implement the fact that they do have duties in two spheres. They have the duty to be the operational director of their respective department, and I'm confident from what I've seen and from talking to people in the department, there are a number of people and high-ranking people within each department who can do that. But the other part gets ignored. The other part seems to be dismissed and even laughed at, and that is do you have somebody who you can count on as a member of council or as the manager who is responsible to us, and whether or not there's a public safety director involved? Do you have people that you can count on to implement the policies that council decides need to be implemented?
That's what I'm looking for. And I will tell you, what I've seen is far more distressing than it is encouraging. It's always about particular individuals. We can talk about these things in the abstract, chiefs versus public safety directors. We're being told, and when I say we, I mean I am being told, that the departments feel and feel extremely strongly that particular people ought to be the chiefs. If, in my view, those people in their public dealings and in their public pronouncements and in what they have failed to do in terms of presenting an image of the department, because when you present an image of the department, you present an image of the city. If I do not see anything that persuades me that these people, if you made them chief tomorrow, would suddenly turn a switch and would say, well, yes, manager, if you would like part-timers, I may not agree with it, but we're going to implement it and we're going to try and make it work. All I'm looking for is some evidence of that, and I don't see it.
Point well taken, but I'm glad you brought up the city manager position, because it's my understanding, and maybe I get some clarification on this, that the city manager right now is operating without a contract.
Well, city manager has protections statutorily.
Okay.
So, there are basically the terms of any city manager's employment are spelled out in the statute and in the city handbook. So, no, she does not have a contract, and it is spelled out in the statute if someone were to be terminated, what the terms of that would be.
Mm-hmm.
So it clearly is that way in the statute. To be honest with you, a contract probably benefits the city manager more than it benefits the city.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But I think it actually benefits the city, because if the city manager is managing these departments and she's operating above the political fray and knows that she can make decisions that might be unpopular, but hopefully are forgotten in 3 or 4 years whenever the contract's up, she can more effectively do her job. Right now, I know I wouldn't be that comfortable if I were a police or fireman or on the beach patrol, having somebody that was basically serving at the will of city council, and knowing that there's a good chance that she could be operating in a political manner. So I think there needs to be a firewall there between council and the city manager so they can effectively do their job.
Yep. And I understand your position.
Let me.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
One further point to what Mr. Tate said. By law, by statute, the city manager is an at-will employee. We couldn't enter into a contract that would be contrary to the state law. State law says at any time a city manager can be terminated. The only difference would be if it was for cause, there'd be no severance. If it was not for cause, there'd be 3 months severance. So we could not, there may be merits to having a written agreement or not, but that particular provision couldn't be part of it.
In years past, how frequent was it for the city manager not to have a contract?
They had contracts in the past.
In Brigantine.
In Brigantine.
This is unprecedented, that a city manager does not have a contract at this time?
We offered Miss Blumenthal a contract, and she demurred, telling us that it was not necessary. Her position was statutorily regulated, and she has statutory provisions that protect her from and make her above the fray. So she, no matter what, she serves at the will of council, and she didn't feel the need for a contract. And to be honest with you, in those negotiations, I found that to be very refreshing after having dealt with others who insisted on long-term contracts.
And if I could add to that, one other point. The city manager, by law, is protected against members of the governing body interfering with her authority, or his authority in case of a man, by interacting or trying to direct the activities of city employees. We as a council can't do that. It may seem to be cumbersome in some occasions, but the benefits far outweigh the costs. I, for example, would not be in a position to ask John Doring to do something because I wanted to see it done. If there's something I think is worthy of being done or should get the attention of the public works, I go to the manager, and it's the manager who makes the decision whether or not to proceed in the way that I would like to see done. That is, it's an excellent protection for the employees, and Contrary, I think, to your impression, it gives the employees the protection and the assurance of knowing that when they deal with the manager, they're dealing with somebody who has the ultimate authority to do or not do whatever it is they may seek.
Okay.
Chris, thank you. Any other comments based on agenda items? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close the public portion. And first ordinance is ordinance number 2 of 2014. It's an introduction. And this ordinance is an ordinance of the City of Brigantine, amending and supplementing Chapter 3 of the City of Brigantine Code entitled Administration, and the Chapter 3 of the Code of the City of Brigantine entitled Administration, more specifically 3-43 entitled Director of Public Safety, that the position, office, title, powers, and duty of the Director of Public Safety as established in that section of the Code of the City of Brigantine are hereby repealed and abolished. Have a motion and a second, please.
Mayor, I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion?
I have a few comments. I would like to see this issue resolved, and I'd like to see the administration and the unions work together collaboratively to address these problems together. 7 months ago, there was a situation where there was a need for an interim public safety director. I, along with other city council members, were looking for ways to explore ways to save the taxpayers' money in our public safety departments. We were hoping for cooperation from these departments along the way. As a government, we need to enact measures to save money and promote efficiencies. We are dealing with money that belongs to the people of this city that is paid in taxes. And we need to be as efficient as we possibly can with that money. The city is not relieving anyone from their jobs. What we need is leadership in the public safety departments that will carry out our mission, the city manager's mission, to provide the best results with the least amount of funds and work professionally with the city manager. Over the next couple of weeks, we need the unions and the administration to agree on something.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. Any other comments? Okay, seeing none, could we have roll call, please?
Simpson,
I'm going to vote yes for the same reasons for the last year I've been talking about.
McClay,
I'm going to vote yes.
Bacardi,
Yes.
DeLucre,
Yes.
Palilla,
Yes.
Kern,
Yes.
Mayor Gunther.
I'm going to vote yes, and hopefully this is the first step in a process of resolving this matter.
Motion carried.
Okay. Next resolution is Resolution 2014-39.
Mayor, we got the documentation for this maybe about 4 o'clock. So according to the ordinance, it says that we have read the specifications, and it's blatantly impossible. I speed read, and I got through 50 pages, and I have some questions about it, too. But I would ask that we table this until the next meeting.
You know what, may I make a couple points about this? This resolution for council to approve specifications of the fire truck is not mandatory. The reason I put this on the agenda is because there were so many questions during the capital ordinance about the specifications of the fire truck, which we did not have at that point. Since that point, we, council approved to hire the consultant. A committee was formed that includes the director, the 4 captains, 2 of the retired fire chiefs, and they came up with the consultant these specifications. Now, the specifications are going to be very detailed. Even if you write 150 pages, you're not going to know the details of a fire truck. But I wanted to put this on here, well, except for Andy, maybe. But I just wanted to put this on here because it was a topic. Really, where council's authority is in this process is we'll use these specifications to go out to bid Once we get the bids in, council has to approve the bid for us to go out and purchase. So I'm asking you to please let it go through because we're running late on getting the fire apparatus at this point. Dan, what's the time frame now if we were to use these specifications to go out to bid?
The vendor's estimates are between 10 and 12 months to build a fire truck. So the day it's awarded and it goes forward, it's 10 to 12 months after that.
Okay. How long do you think it's going to take to
Well,
the
let's-
bidding
we're going to
process?
discuss this ordinance.
Oh,
Let's
okay.
have a motion in a second, then we can keep it consistent.
So moved.
Second.
Joe, I know you had some issues, and I agree with you. It's a lot to, Lynn actually gave me a printed copy to go through. But I think the ordinance says we've reviewed them, so I guess we could review them tonight with the,
We could even not go through with the resolution. It would still, I legally don't need this to go out for the bid because your authority comes when the bids come in. You don't have to approve for us to purchase any of the bids. But if you want to, we can always, you can always review after the fact the specs.
Jennifer,
maybe some general questions about this.
wait a minute, can I ask a more general question maybe than the one you're going to ask? The specifications as they now exist that you want to go out with, that's the collaborative effort agreed on by the department, our consultant, and public safety director?
Yes, it was the consultant that, for the 10,000 we approved to hire. There was a committee formed that includes the director, the 4 captains, and 2 of the retired fire chiefs. And through that collaborative effort, that's where these specifications came from.
If I could, it was actually, it was retired Chief Stan Kwiklinski, I believe pronounced his name, Captain Reynolds, and as Jennifer said, the 4 captains, mostly Captain Widener, but the other captains obviously had input as well. And then there was various members of the department, to include the consultant. This all came about because of that, actually. Pardon me. And I sent an email to Chief Kwiklinski. I couldn't thank him enough. I mean, no disrespect to anybody in the fire department themselves, but he was instrumental in going over this literally line by line and came back and made sure that every I was dotted and every T was crossed.
There's no one who will immerse themselves more in purchasing something than former Chief Kwiklinski, I can tell you that.
Absolutely. But I am very comfortable with these. The QPA has gone over them. The boilerplate language, as she called it, was put in here. She looked at it. All the non-proprietary issues were taken out of it. Actually, it talks about or equivalent to, I think is what she wanted to put in it. So you would take all the proprietariness out of the specifications. But again, it's 10 to 12 months from build out from the time it's ordered. There was a lot of time was put into this and a lot of back and forth. Actually, there was some additions made to that because of the need to raise the houses. One of the questions we put in the specs was to put a 35-foot ladder onto this fire rescue pumper, which is not the normal. So the first in company would be able to have a bigger ladder to get to the higher houses until the ladder truck gets there. So there was a lot of uniqueness put into this truck that it's unique to Brigantine.
And we're replacing the pumper that was lost.
Yes, sir.
How close is this close? And I know it has some new things added to it, but is it close to what we had originally?
No, it's totally different. What was lost, it's what it mirrors is the current. The new one that's left. The 2 old ones were lost. The newer one is left. It mirrors that new one. And the term I think we became fond of using was step on, step off, to make this truck as close to that truck. So the interchangeability is not a question of where everything's at. It's a kind of a seamless transition, regardless of what truck you're on.
So it's dual use.
I'm sorry?
The dual use, the truck.
I'm sorry.
So it's either a pumper or a ladder truck.
This is
can be used.
what's called as a rescue pumper,
Right.
because they have rescue tools in here. They have it's a fire engine. It's a rescue pumper. There you go, extrications. It's a very unique truck. It's not just an engine. It's not just a ladder truck. But there's actually a lift, and I have a picture of it. There's actually a lift. I call it a lift gate, if you will, that brings the 35-foot ladder. It's very heavy to put it up top of the truck. So if they needed a taller ladder before the ladder truck has a chance to get there, it won't slow them down. So that, again, it speaks the uniqueness of Brigantine.
Well, I have a couple of questions, just in the first 50 pages, from a total neophyte in this. But one of the things that struck me was there's a sticker telling people how high that vehicle is, expressed in inches. The height of the vehicle dash inches.
Okay.
When you're going down the thruway, the height of the underpass is always expressed in feet and inches.
Okay.
So it seems a little illogical that somebody's going to have to make a quick calibration between inches and feet and inches if they're going off the island to help somebody and come to an overpass that has a height limit restriction on it. The other thing, why are there only light-duty skid plates protecting the cooling system and one of the air intakes? Because when we had the storm and the trucks were going through deep water, they couldn't see what was in front of them. And would a light-duty deflector protect the truck adequately?
Well, as the mayor alluded to, Chief Kukinski is the genius in this.
Mhm.
I will tell you that ahead of time. But I will tell you this, there was a lot of discussion about the air intakes, the water levels. A lot of it, the things in this truck are bound by NFPA standards. As far as the intake, it's bound by where the pumps are at, the pump configurations, the cabinets. There's a 24-foot ladder that goes into this truck. So NFPA standard is you can't have that ladder extruded into the pump panel.
Right.
When you start reconfiguring everything starts
Mhm.
getting very mechanical as far as where things can be and not be. I know the air intake could not be anywhere else other than where it was put in here.
Well,
They did address it, they
these
did
are
point
things
out-
that are under the chassis to protect parts as it
Yes.
goes over rough areas. And they're light duty?
I'll be honest with you, Mr. Councilman, I can't
Okay.
answer that question.
Okay.
The, Jennifer, the funding for this, I know we passed the bond ordinance, but we also received the insurance proceeds.
Yes, we have insurance proceeds, and I know Johnny's been analyzing that, and he was the one that submitted all the insurance data, so he has that. We do have insurance funds, however, this is the specification, so we don't know the amount. Once the bids come in and we see the total amount, we'll see how much the insurance proceeds will cover the truck. I believe that we'll have enough through the bond ordinance, even though it's for other fire apparatus to cover any difference. And then if we have more in the capital ordinance, we can always close that out. But I think we'll be fine.
But we'll dedicate the insurance proceeds, there's some concern about, are we gonna take the insurance proceeds and use that to purchase the truck as opposed to the debt issue?
No, we're going to use
Part of it, it's not gonna cover the entire amount.
We're going to use the insurance proceeds to pay for the truck, and anything that we need above that for the truck will come from the bonding ordinance. But we can't use capital bond ordinance money for anything else but bonding. We
Right.
can't use that and put it into the general fund.
Right.
That's very specific in bond law.
Very good. Okay, well, I'm comfortable considering the committee you had working on this, moving it forward. And to be honest with you, I know we're kind of wearing out our welcome barring equipment. We had Galloway's for about a year, and now we have Atlantic City. So it's time to move forward on this. Any further discussion? Okay.
I agree that, I don't think there's anything that I know I can add to the professionals' work in developing these specifications, and I want to thank them all for that. The only thing I would suggest is, since I don't think any of us have read through the entire specifications, if we could amend the language of the resolution simply to say that we authorize them to go out to bid based on the specifications.
So take the review out and just say we were authorizing. Okay?
Okay with you, Fred? Fine.
Okay, thank you. All right, we've had a motion and a second, we've had discussion. Could we have roll call, please?
Simpson?
Yes.
McClay?
Yes.
McCarty?
Yes.
DeLucre?
Yes.
Palilla?
Yes.
Kern?
Yes.
Mayor Gunther?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, next we have a resolution designating, designation of agents to act on behalf of the city of Brigantine, New Jersey, for the New Jersey Environmental Infrastructure Financing Program loan application. Have a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, this is a list of engineers that we approved at the last meeting to act as our agents. Ed, anything else you want to add to?
No, Mayor, just as you said, this is a resolution for specific for the New Jersey Environmental Infrastructure Trust. And as you said, it identifies the engineers that were awarded the various contracts at the last council meeting.
Okay, any discussion by council members?
Question for Jennifer. Jennifer, I see that we've identified the engineers to their respective projects and indicated generally that you and Ed and Margaret Gorman are also authorized to represent the city. Just wanted to be clear, the overall responsibility for coordinating that effort would rest with you, right?
As the city manager, yes, this was, we have a consultant, Jim Rotella, who's very actively involved with this loan application. And when we approved the various projects, I work very closely with Jim, with Ed, and ultimately as the city manager, yes.
Yeah. And the reason I ask is just so we know who will be accountable since we're on such a tight timetable with these.
Okay, yeah, I'll take accountability for it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Ed, I have a quick question. I saw some of the engineers out there working. Unfortunately, we had some bad weather. Have they all started?
Yes, they've all been out there, and it's been a zoo, quite frankly. But they're all moving, and they're all expressing so far anyway that they will meet the deadline.
Good.
Okay, any other questions, discussion? Okay, seeing none, can we have roll call, please?
Simpson.
Yes.
McClay.
Yes.
McCarty.
Yes.
DeLucre.
Yes.
Palillo.
Yes.
Kern.
Yes.
Mayor Gunther.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Next, we have designating the agents to act on behalf of the city and the Bureau of Water System Engineering permit application. And this would allow for different engineers, Dennis Yoder and from Remington and Vernick. We have a motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Ed, any,
Very briefly, Mayor, this is a resolution authorizing the environmental permit, the NJDEP permit application for the new well. So this is in conjunction with the previous resolution. One of the projects is the construction of a replacement well for well number 4. That project will require DEP approval from Bureau of Safe Drinking Water. This resolution authorizes that application.
okay. If Benani were here, we would have combined them.
All of them.
Okay, any other discussion? Seeing none, can we have roll call?
Simpson.
Yes.
McClay.
Yes.
McCarty.
Yes.
DeLucre.
Yes.
Palillo.
Yes.
Kern.
Yes.
Mayor Gunther.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, resolution 2014-43 is the, I think I skipped one. I did. 42, 2014-42 is asking New Jersey legislator to promote equality and transparency by adding the provisions of Oprah to apply to the legislature. Can I have a motion and second, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I know everyone's had a chance to look this over, and Rick, I know you've reached out to some members of the legislative team.
Yes, when we considered this at the last meeting, I asked to have it tabled because I wanted to reach out to some of our local legislators to see if there was in fact some justification or claim justification for the exemptions that the legislature created for itself from the operation of the Open Public Records Act. I reached out to Senator Whalen and to Assemblyman Chris Brown. Both got back to me, which I appreciate. And the bottom line of it was that although neither of those men was in the legislature the last time the Open Public Records Act was amended in 2001, neither of them really were familiar with any arguments that had been made why there ought to be an exemption. Apparently it's not a subject that came up a lot at the legislature. And you know, based on that, that satisfied me that there probably isn't a justification for continuing, for the legislature to continue that exemption. In addition to that, and I don't think this happened in response to my posing the question, but Assemblyman Brown has also introduced legislation to amend Oprah in some respects. I forwarded that to our manager. I don't know if she's had a chance to distribute it yet, but What I'd ask, looking ahead to the 5th, is that we consider on March 5th, once we've had a chance to look at Assemblyman Brown's legislation, consider a resolution of support for the specific changes to OPRA that he's recommending or that he's asking for in that legislation.
Very good, thank you. Okay, any further discussion?
I had a chance to review Chris Brown's bill, and that also affirms the confidentiality of individual constituents and community and communication with their legislators, and that was the exemption I was concerned about. And the one senator I reached out to, they got back to me, and the S-825 was introduced to address privacy concerns, but there's no plans to have that bill posted in committee at this time. But if Chris is going to move forward, then that's the one I would probably want to vote on.
Okay. Good. Seeing no other discussion, can we have a roll call, please?
Simpson.
Yes.
McClay.
Are we voting on this
Yeah,
one
just
right
the
here?
resolution, yes.
Right.
Yes.
Riccardi.
Yes.
DeLucre.
Yes.
Colella.
Yes.
Kern.
Yes.
Mayor Gunther.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay. Next, we have Resolution 2014-43, the Governor's Council Grant for Alcoholism and Drug Abuse. And this is, I guess, the application for that grant?
Yes, this is
Okay.
us for,
All right, so this is permission to apply. Do you have a motion second, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, could we have a roll call, please?
Simpson.
Yes.
McClay.
Yes.
Riccardi.
Yes.
DeLucre.
Yes.
Colella.
Yes.
Kern.
Yes.
Mayor Gunther.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, Resolution 2014-44, authorizing the city manager to sign the surf/paddleboard school agreement. Do you have a motion second, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, can we have a roll call, please?
Simpson.
Yes.
McClay.
Yes.
Riccardi.
Yes.
DeLucre.
Yes.
Colella.
Yes.
Kern.
Yes.
Mayor Gunther.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Resolution 2014-45, do we want to hold this until after executive session?
Yeah, if council would like to discuss it further, we can do that. The resolution is available to you should you choose to move forward on this matter tonight. But if you have further discussion, this does deal with the leasing of municipal property. It's a proper item for executive session.
This is something that was discussed, I guess, at our last meeting in the executive session. Ran 2 meetings, ran rather late. I don't know if we're ready for this yet, or you want to have some further discussion before we move forward on it.
My opinion, I'm content to move ahead with the resolution for the leasing, but I think we might still want to entertain in executive session discussion about whether any of these parcels might also be better suited for consideration of an outright sale. But that wouldn't prevent us, I don't think, from moving ahead with the proposal now to put them out for lease.
Right, well, there may be another option as well that we might want to discuss in executive session that may not be a lease. So I would feel more comfortable if we wait until after we discuss it and come back out.
Based upon this conversation, if council has this many, competing ideas, let's take it in executive session and see where council is before we move.
Okay. If we can hold that then until after executive session, and then any manager, council, committee discussion?
not from me at this point.
Okay. We are moving at warp speed here.
Well, let me, hold on then, let me slow that down. There is one thing I did want to touch on, Mayor. And that is, we all saw over the past couple of weeks how, particularly coming out of the public sessions on the continuing failure of the distribution of aid to the victims of Sandy and the myriad problems that seem to be affecting that program. And I'm not going to belabor that. I mean, you attended the meeting, you heard what people said, and we've all heard what people said, and they're still hurting, and we're like 16 months out, and a minuscule portion of the money has found its way to people. And each day seems to bring more disturbing news where the major contractors who are part of or supposed to be part of the program are getting quietly canned and paid some kind of settlements, and no explanation's been given. A few days back, the Press of Atlantic City had on its editorial page an editorial, which I'll make copies available after the meeting to our manager, and a lot of you probably have read this, and it was frankly scathing in its denunciation of the failures of the programs that are supposed to put money into people's pockets and that just haven't done that. The legislature, belatedly, seems to be waking up to that, and there are a couple of pieces of legislation which are proposed or making their way through, which would hope to, loosen up whatever the logjam is, and to, put people in the position they need to be in and they deserve to have been in months ago. What I would like to suggest to council is, I'm going to get the text of one of those bills, which is Senate Bill 1306, and that is, I believe it goes by the title, the Sandy Victims Bill of Rights, but don't hold me to that. I'd like to circulate that for people's consideration, and at our next meeting, consider a resolution of support for the sentiment and for that, perhaps, for the particular piece of legislation. Because we're so far past the point when these things should have been done and could have been done, and explanations are lacking. You hear excuses, but they don't ring true, and that's no better proof of that than the comments that you hear from person after person after person at these public sessions. So I think we need to make our voice heard on that.
Thank you, Rick, and I agree wholeheartedly. I sat along with Mike Fieldley, who was there from Brig Strong, through about 2.5 hours of testimony that it was one homeowner after another talking about their difficulty in dealing with getting the aid that they felt they deserved for the damages that they had for their property. And I know firsthand, because of dealing with so many people who have reached out to me, but also through the work that Brig Strong has done, and through the work of Ed Stinson and Rich Stevens in their office. We're in a process now, and I know Brig Strong is doing this, and we cross-reference numbers a lot of dealing with the data, so that when we talk to these different organizations, we can give them the numbers as to how it is impacting on Brigantine. And obviously behind each and every one of those numbers is a story. And it has been a very, very difficult process. We're just starting to see some money coming out now. You see the amount of work that's being done. But there are a lot of people who still have their lives on hold because they're waiting for funding, and they're in what's called that blackout period, where they can't do too much because they won't qualify under RREM. And it is a very, very trying time for your neighbors, and you probably see some of them going through it. Have had some people who have are successfully moving through it, but I have to tell you, it's because of their persistence. They have hung in there. They've gone multiple times to the service center, and they've dealt with sometimes several different agents, and they've been able to work their way through the process, but it's not easy. And I didn't get a chance to testify the other night because the amount of people who had signed up, it precluded me from making my remarks. There were two areas that I wanted to testify about. One was, whatever the source of money is, we have to do a better job of getting it into the hands of the people who need it immediately. It has taken way too long, and it's too bureaucratic. And the other was to talk about the mitigation projects, which are the long-term things that we need to do to make us safer and stronger and to mitigate flooding in the future. But it is, for the individual homeowner, a daunting task to work through this bureaucracy and to get the funding that they need. Has not been easy, and I've said this many times, but we have to really commend the people who are working through the process, for their resilience, and for the work that they've done to keep their households together. And now they're going through another round where many of them have cleaned the house out, made it livable, which we told them to do, and now they're getting funding to raise it, so they have to get out of the house again while the home is being raised and find, you know, whether it's a rental unit or moving in with family to get that work finished. It's been a very trying time for a lot of people in Brigantine, and the state has to do a better job. They absolutely have to do a better job.
Mayor, that comment is part of the bridge.
Yes, absolutely.
Michael Feely, spokesman for Brig Strong. We had our weekly meeting today, and yesterday Tom Millhouse, who is our vice chairman, he sits on the executive county board for Atlantic County Revive, and he reported back to us today that apparently as a result of the meeting at Stockton, where, as you know, the remarks were scathing, to say the least, Constable from
DCA.
Yeah, DCA is now reaching out, and he has actually reached out to Atlantic County Revive. There's going to be a meeting at February 24th at 3 p.m. where he is bringing people in to listen to some of the problems. And it's our understanding that on March 3rd, each of the mayors of the municipalities involved are being invited to a meeting also. You may or may not have received that information yet. So apparently they're trying to be a little bit more proactive.
And I have to tell you, and this is getting the money out to the individuals who need it has been obviously the most difficult task. It has not been because certainly the Director of Constable Commissioner Constable we've met with him. We've met with the Chief Sandy Director, Mark Furzin. Stinson and I met with him in Trenton. We met with their whole group. We've met with them before. It's just a huge bureaucracy that has a lot of federal rules and regulations, and some of the things like that have held the process up, you've heard the stories, the environmental studies that have to be done on every property, the archaeological and all historical and all these different things that are going on. That has, coupled with a huge bureaucracy, has just slowed this thing down to the point where I'm amazed by how well people have done in spite of all this. And it is because people are very resourceful and resilient. But you know, we'll continue to meet, and I think it's important that they continue to hear from homeowners who are in this process and who are experiencing this, and certainly anybody who has anything to pass on to me or to any other members of council who want to pass it up the chain will be willing to do that.
But, you know, I think one thing, I don't know if you can get back to them. When they have meetings at 3 o'clock, a lot of people can't attend because they work. And a lot of people have lost a lot of time pursuing what is really their right to the assistance that they need. It'd be nice to see the meetings held in the evening so that it's not at the convenience of the bureaucracy, but at the convenience of the people who need the assistance.
And Phil, the most recent setback is New Jersey cutting ties with that company that was overseeing all the projects. So now they're receiving letters saying there's going to be more delay while they rehire or hire a new contractor to oversee the projects.
There are different caseworkers already in the Egg Harbor Township facility. So some people have been working with one person, and I'm hearing that new people are in there already, and some people they've been working with are gone, so other people are coming in. It's, you know, it's not an easy process. Couple that with the confusion of your insurance and how that offsets the RREM and then the other programs that are out there and how all those work together. I'd be honest with you, if we didn't have a group like Brig Strong that is doing the case management piece of this, Brigantine would be in a lot worse shape than we are. We are as far along as we are because in many cases they've been able to disseminate the information directly to the individuals who need it.
Brigstrong has done a lot. I mean, we've distributed over $500,000 to the local community. Actually, city clerk actually holds those purse strings, and she's done a fabulous job with it. But one thing we also want to compliment is the Chamber of Commerce. Tom
You
Millhouse.
can compliment city council as well.
Well, we could, but we'll wait until we get through some of these other things.
Yeah, hold all applause.
Yes. The Chamber of Commerce stepped up. Tom Millhouse made a presentation to them, and there was a brief article in the Beachcomber this last week about toothache problems. Those little problems that tend to malinger, and it could be a question of moving an air conditioner, or it could be a question of sealing something, and it's just those little things that's not worth going to insurance or trying to find different areas of financing. And 20 members of the chamber stepped up and said they would provide labor in order to help some of these issues, and Brigstrong is committed to providing the materials. So if there are issues, please let Brigstrong know. Our case managers are following up on that. And if you're willing to volunteer, that you can provide labor, but labor in trade labor, where if you're a plumber or a carpenter or a painter or HVAC or whatever, let us know, and we'll help put the left and the right hand together and take care of some of these toothaches. Thank you.
Mike, the other part of this, and this is something that we discussed as a council before, is the work that Congressman Lobiondo has been doing on the flood insurance rates. And it's a bipartisan effort with Senator Menendez. And that seems to be moving in a very positive direction, as everyone knows, and that's going to have a huge impact here in Brigantine on the cost of flood insurance for our residents, and certainly for property values going forward, because when you're in that area of uncertainty, that's what holds everyone back from making those investments in property in Brigantine. So I want to thank them for their work, and they have been involved in this from the very beginning and realized the impact of it. And I think we understood, because we were the first group to see that with the FEMA maps coming out and everything that resulted in that. I know Ed and Rich Stevens still go to those Coastal Coalition meetings, and that group worked very well together to push the FEMA issue with the maps. But it really is a national problem, and I think that it's starting to be recognized that way, that it's going to impact everyone who has flood insurance at some point. So it's something that they've been able to articulate very well with their colleagues, and hopefully we'll see some action that will result in lower insurance rates for us going forward. Okay. Any other council discussion, reports? Did I forget something? Oh, yes, we go to the consent agenda. We have the Surf and Land Fishing Club Tournament request, the Municipal Alliance Hooked on Fishing request, and the Elks Raffle License number 690. We have a motion and a second, please?
So moved. Second.
Okay, can we have roll call, please?
Simpson.
Yes.
McLean.
Yes.
Hardy.
Yes.
Lucre.
Yes.
Palella.
Yes.
Kern.
Yes.
Mayor Gunther.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, at this point, we'll open the meeting for public comment on any topics. If you would, please state your name and address to the record and use the microphone. Please bear in mind that we have a 5-minute limit on comments. Mike, you have...
Mike Snyder, 10 Beach Cove. The reason I'm here tonight solely was for the issues of the parking. There's 3 parking areas in Brigantine that are surrounded by commercial properties. One is in between Ocean Beverage and Andre's Restaurant. There's construction offices, there's restaurants, there's a liquor store, there's real estate offices, there's a bunch of different businesses that have the opportunity to use that property. The next property is across from the Civic Center. There's a marina, there's multifamily housing units, there's residential people, there's the VFW, and there's other businesses in that area that have the opportunity to use that area. And then the most recent is the Triangle at around 30th and Brigantine Avenue, which has a real estate office, a restaurant, bakery, and several other businesses around it. I've come here several times talking about the parcel of real estate that abuts the City Public Works building. There's a real estate office, there's a restaurant, there's a construction company, there's a marina, there's all the same exact businesses that operate around these other businesses that the city has put out public parking at no cost to the businesses, and just an opportunity for the city to come and use these businesses. But we have the property behind these other businesses that I'm talking about along Public Works that you're talking about charging the different owners to use these properties, and I don't understand it. I came here in July offering to pay the $3,000 a year and offer another $3,000 to make improvements to the area. And then I came a month ago just asking to see what happened, and now I'm here to try to understand, and I'd like each council person to just to give me see what their thoughts are on how you can offer free and public parking for the good of the business of Brigantine in 3 separate areas, but then there's this one area that you're trying to create leases, you're putting out for bid. We're all the same business. We're all trying to struggle in Brigantine. There's no reason why one real estate office should have to pay for parking and another one doesn't, or one marina does and another marina doesn't, or one restaurant does, another restaurant. We're all struggling. I'm currently, building Stake 38, and it's going to be a restaurant, it's going to be a bar, it's going to be it's going to be an attraction, okay? But understand, in the winter, for 9 months out of the year, we're going to shut down 75% of it, okay? In order to make it survive, okay? When we're open, we're going to employ 100 people in the good months and maybe 30 people in the bad months, and all these other businesses, the marinas and real estate offices and restaurants, they all suffer the same fate. These, whatever the bills are, it's hard to pay them. I'm not trying to create a business for the rest of my life. I'm trying to create a business I can sell to somebody else, and then they can sustain themselves. They can operate in Brigantine. You've seen all these restaurants that are just, the doors are closed. Other businesses, the doors are closed. Look around. There's nothing happening. But I want to start, Mr. Pillow, and I want to work my way down, and I want you guys to tell me what your thoughts are on why there's three great parking areas that help, and yet we're having lawyers develop leases, and we're going to vote, we're going to have bids. If it's a bidding process, then one business is going to have the opportunity to use it, and other businesses aren't. It's not fair. Every business there's business, there's multifamily housing, there's people that need it. A public safety issue is to keep these cars off the street on a high-speed road. So why can't we just open this up for the good of it? I'll pay for the fence along the entire property. I don't mind spending the money. It's the principle of the matter, okay? I'll have it done in the next couple of weeks. We can be done with this. I can ask for some help from other people that, if they want to help. If not, it's okay. I'll talk to my partner. Maybe we'll pay for it. But please, help me out here, and why are we doing this? Why are we having this conversation again?
All right. There are, the one inequity that I see, and we tried to address this the last time, is the public parking across from the Civic Center. That's a city-owned property.
It was bought with Green Acres money, so we have to be careful what we do with that.
I'm not certain how that was purchased. I'm not aware of that. I'm talking about across from the old Civic Center?
Correct.
Okay. So that's city-owned, and
we need that. I don't want you guys to sell it.
Pretty much.
I lived across the street. That area needs it.
Okay.
And that's what another marina is going to suffer.
I'm trying to address it. It is true that there is a marina that has been parking there for free, and when we did the leases last time, I know that some people from the public, and of course I spoke to the city manager, that that marina also should probably have to pay for spaces across the street. That's that one property. In the center of town, that was purchased by the city some years ago. I wasn't on council at that time. That property was purchased by the city. I don't know whether they got Green Acres money or not. I'm sure the mayor could probably, give you more information on that. That is public parking for anybody that goes in the central business district there. It's not for one individual property.
Absolutely.
It's on a first-come, first-served basis. In front of the old Jack's Pharmacy, that property's been there for as long as I've been in town. I've been here for 35 years, so I don't know the genesis of that. Don't know how that happened.
But each one of these areas is a positive.
Then
They're
I want
good.
to get to the area where you are. Stake 38, back in 1987, expanded, and that's about a 13,000 square foot building. And in order for them to expand, they needed X amount of spaces, and you're aware of this because any business that expands has to go in front of the planning board, and you have to make a presentation and show how you are going to be able to allow patrons to park. In 1987, they entered into a lease, not necessarily with the city. They said that they were going to enter into a lease for the additional spaces that they needed. Ultimately, they rented from the city and apparently a private lot as well. So they have been paying a lease for the property that the city owns for 26 years, 27 years.
There was two
The
10-year
Lighthouse
leases.
Plaza has been paying a lease for those properties for
And
the
they're not
past
paying, this year they're going to be exempt from that. They're not paying.
for the past 30 years. So you're coming up here bringing up a point, and I'm sure that, council will discuss it, in executive, but, you asked me to, as well as I do, that any business that wants to expand has to go in front of the planning board. If they don't meet the criteria of parking, they have to make, stipulations and, appeal to the planning board because of a lack of parking. But at the end of the day, positive criteria versus negative criteria, and they make those decisions. But with those properties that you're referring to, those businesses there have been paying rent for nearly 30 years.
What happens if nobody pays for the rent? Are you going to have people ticketed and towed?
Pardon?
If if it comes up for a bid and we all decide that we're not going to bid on it, are you going to have people ticketed and towed for the public?
That's something that would have, if somebody makes a complaint, I'm sure that would happen.
Okay, Dr. Kern, what's your thoughts on this?
There are there are municipal.
How is one different than the other?
Pardon me?
How is this one area different than these other free public
There,
areas that's, for business in Brigantine?
are you going to let me?
Yes,
Is it my turn?
it is.
There are other municipal lots in this community that are rented to businesses for parking. For instance, we have a lot near the 42nd Street water tower, and businesses rent space there to store trailers and other equipment that they use on a once in a while, or trucks that they use once in a while. We also have another area that I'm trying to remember where it is that we rent for parking. But the longevity of this particular parcel that you're talking about, it came with a stipulation that that building had to go out and get extra parking. You were aware of that when you purchased the building. I'm sure that with your due diligence, you knew that that was part of the purchase. So it's been in effect for 30 years or close to it. I see no reason to change that. There are lots of businesses there. Oh, the other lot, I'm sorry, is the lot that the municipality rents to the wave station. So we also lease that lot. So there are precedents for leasing public parking, if you will, in the city. There are also precedents for not. You've brought some of those up to our attention. But that's, you asked what my decision-making process is. That's my decision-making process.
The two lots you talked about are for long-term storage.
Pardon me?
The two lots that you mentioned are for long-term storage facility type. They're not like kind with regard to the business district. Ocean Beverage sold its parking lot, gave up every spot that it had of off-street parking. It gave up and sold it, and the buyer was the city of Brigantine to help other businesses. I'll lease the property, I'll buy the property, I'll fence the whole property in. I'm talking about the rest of the people that need it. Why should I own it and have use for it when other people can use it? Fish Finder can use it during the day, the Lighthouse Plaza can use it, the Prudential Real Estate Office can use it.
We would like everybody to be able to.
But you have the ability to change things and have 4 parking lots in Brigantine that are for the good of Brigantine and businesses in Brigantine.
But Mike, the businesses that you mentioned are all ready, willing, and able to bid on the minimum bid.
Because they have to, because they don't feel like they don't want to. I've talked to these people, and they don't, it's not something they want to do.
Well, listen, we would all like something for nothing, but none of those other businesses have expressed that to me.
So should we change the Ocean Beverage parking lot to by permit only? I mean, the beach parking next to Laguna is, after 6, they have the ability to use it, which is great. That's what they should have. During the day, it's by permit. I mean, these are just short-term parking spaces. You know. Mr. Gunther?
Mike, well, I was here for I wasn't here for the 87 lease, but I was here for the Ocean Beverage lease. And a lot of these things happen as a result of something that is going on that, quite frankly, the only way to solve that problem was that the city bought the lot and got it for a very good price and was able to make it a municipal lot. And what I'm talking about is there was no cooperation there between the businesses. So one business owned the property and would not allow anyone going into one of the other businesses to park in the lot, which caused all kinds of issues and sent the wrong message to people coming to Brigantine if they got towed or, and towing was, of course, the biggest issue. So, you know, I supported buying that lot, and I think it was a good thing to do because it really helps out in that area. And the issue you bring up, though, and Jack's Pharmacy's been there as long as I can remember. It's a little different configuration now than it was, but the issue you bring up is one that that has me thinking that, quite frankly, and this is something that we'll discuss in executive session, really makes me think a little differently about how we move forward with that. The only thing that complicates it is a planning board resolution that approved that in the first place, and that's something that I'm going to seek some direction from our solicitor on, you know, where we are with that. But, you know, the whole issue, first of all, you know, no amount of money when you're dealing with public funds is insignificant, but also, you know, being business friendly is a very important thing. And to be honest with you, most of those spaces behind there are empty. If you go there, the only time that they were busy was when Stake 38 was in business, and they didn't use all the spots all the time, you know, in that section. Their operation was a little bit different. They charged for parking. If you remember, they had valet parking, and they would charge people to park there. I'm not sure what the operation will be going forward with any new operator, but I think you make a compelling argument. So it's something I'm willing to listen to.
Thank you. Mr. Simpson?
Well, Fred, me and Mike were partners at one time, so if I'm going off the reservation, tell me, okay? And the other the property I own is the property that goes along with the planning board resolution back in '87. So his parking is part of mine over at Kenny's Auto and the Beachcomber building.
Councilman, if you wouldn't mind, maybe we could hold your comments for the moment.
Okay.
Mike, I want nothing more than for you to be successful in your business and all businesses on the island. And I'd like to do anything I can to help you be successful. As far as the history and leasing these lots, you know, I'm figuring it all out right now. I'm thinking, would you want spots exclusively for you, for your restaurant?
No. If I have to rent the entire parcel along the back of the public works, as far as I'm concerned, it's for the good of the public and for Fish Finder, for the businesses behind Lighthouse Plaza, for Prudential. You know, I have to protect our interest, our investment. We're spending several $1 million, and we, you know, we're looking to protect. You want to sell us the property? Put a price on it. I cannot afford to have somebody try to bid on one piece. You know, if we're the third parcel to go up for a vote and we wait till the end to vote for that or bid on that, and we're unsuccessful, it's had I known this going into this, Stake 38 would still be sitting empty,
Mhm.
okay? That's why it sat empty since 2008, because nobody had the guts to go after it and do what we're doing. And I come here and I ask for support and basically beg and plead.
Mhm.
I don't need to, it's not for me. I'm trying to create a business that we can sell and that people can sustain themselves, and they don't shut the doors in a year and a half and lose their homes. Everybody knows how business in Brigantine is. When I sold the cellar, I knew that they could pay me and make enough money to make it worth their while. Okay? They have a neighbor, it's called CVS, best neighbor in the world. You go there, you can park in their lot. Terry and Larry Albany, we can park in their lot. We have that type of relationship in that area. With Stake 38, 7-Eleven, they allow us to park on the side of their building, and Andy's offered it, and the cleaners are fine. I mean, that's Brigantine. We have to be careful going forward with what happens with that parcel. Okay, if it's $3,000 a year, I'll spend more than that each year making improvements to that area. With your blessings, I offered that. So it's not all about the money. I'm not trying to get it for free. I'm just trying to just have an open an area that everybody can use.
And we appreciate it, and we appreciate that you offered to put up the fencing. I think we have a bigger issue with the fencing down there.
I was on the phone the other day getting prices on the fencing, on 8-foot, chain link, on 6-foot solid vinyl. I mean, I'm doing the research on it. Something's got to be done.
Yeah, I think we're looking at that. We're looking at the entire area that needs to be fenced.
Yeah.
Not just that one area.
No, but it's a start.
I'm sure tonight we'll discuss this with council.
Mr. Bacardi?
My turn.
Yes, sir.
As Lisa said, nobody wants to put obstacles in the way of your business or anybody else's. The way I've looked at it up to now is, historically, this has been the only thing that's been presented to us as a council. These spaces have always been leased, that's the way it is, and we are proceeding along the lines, for purely historical reasons. And that's it. But, no disrespect meant, but you're a businessman, you're not a missionary. You're looking to make money, and that's fine. There's no problem with that. But I'm sorry that you didn't come with a proposal like this from the beginning, and it probably would have been resolved a lot further down the line. But this is the first that we're hearing about this, and by all means, we'll consider it, and consider it to the benefit, because remember, we have to balance your benefit and the benefit of the city, and that's what we'll try to do.
Mr. DeLucre.
Mike, you're selling stuff you don't need to sell to us. When you came to us months back, the idea then was that you were looking to get an exclusive over those particular spots next to your property. And my answer to you then was, for speaking for myself and for council whole, we have no problem with helping you out, but we couldn't do what you want us to do. We can't legally deal with one person and enter into a lease with them. The law says we have to go through a process, and the process says you got to put those spaces out. My assumption, as Joe just alluded to, was that for your business reasons, you were looking to get control of those spaces, and the longer the better. And I don't know all the particulars of the prior approval, but I've seen the prior approval, and I know that there was an agreement by the prior owner back when that they would control, or they would lease from the city a certain number of spaces, and they also had a great number of spaces at what was then vacant lot owned by Ben Lee at 38th Street, which has since become, as Andy says, Kenny's Garage. Those are issues I'm sure you'll deal with, and go to the planning board and make your case for them to lift it, and I wish you great success with that. But I had the assumption, based on what you said when you came in before, you were looking to control the spaces. If you'd prefer it to be a first-come, first-served, no charge to anybody, whoever uses the spaces, uses the spaces, as is done in the other lots, I'm absolutely willing to consider that. That piece behind yours and the piece behind the wave, my assumption was because you have, an imminent business and an ongoing business, they wanted long-term security. Again, but that's your call. If that's not something that you want,
Can I ask you a question? Can we create a lease for that area directly behind Stake 38 and leave the rest of it from Stake 38 up to the Prudential Building open to the public, where then there's no leases created for that area, I'll pay for the lease behind my area. Then they don't have to pay, and the rest of the people don't have to pay and worry about that area.
Well,
Fish Finder will know he's got enough spots when he needs it. If Lighthouse Plaza needs some spots, if Prudential Parkers, you know, the realtors need a couple spots behind their building, we can take care of the whole area. Just let us, one person pay, just for that one area. And if you're saying I'm the only person that really needs it, then just do it, just me.
Well, again, if
Can we
that's
do that?
something- We can go, I even wrote down 5 different ways it could go. One of which, and you could tell me if this is of interest to you, and again, because you and the wave would really be the only two that this would maybe be of interest to, and that would be an outright purchase. Now, again,
I would entertain it.
that would have to be, you know, by legal procedures, but, you know, at least in theory, my understanding from a brief discussion with our solicitor, who was trying to hide from this, was that it is possible, or will be possible, to subdivide that strip of the public works yard that contains those spaces right behind your restaurant,
Mhm.
and then that could be offered to the public. I'll assume, but I don't know, that nobody else would have an interest in buying that besides you. I would have no problem with that, because that gives you, I would think, a lot more long-term certainty and adds to the value of your property for a future buyer. So, you know, certainly consider that. I would also consider what you just suggested, you know, offer only the one parcel behind your property for lease. And I take it from your suggesting that you're comfortable with the idea that when it went to auction, you'd be able to secure the rights to that space. I have no issue with that either. The point from back when was, you know, contrary to what I read in some of the local news outlets, you know, we were looking for the best way to help Mike Snyder get where he needs to be. Mike Snyder, I thought, needed long-term security in as many spaces as he could get. But if you're happy with, you know, the less long-term security of a lease, that's fine by me.
Like I said, if it could just be us paying for whatever area that, you know, you offer to us, and then if we could clean up the rest of that strip and just have it for open parking for the public where nobody else has to pay. You know what I mean? Lighthouse Plaza needs very little. Fish Finder's got 3 months out of the year, he needs very little. And
And I agree with you, there's probably a pretty good chance that if we put at least that parcel behind Lighthouse out, nobody's going to be interested in it.
no. And
Now, and I would remind you too, although in the first time you were here, your proposal was an attractive one in terms of, you know, offering to make capital improvements to the fencing at the yard, that for the same reason that we couldn't deal directly with you as an individual versus offering it to the public at large, so we couldn't do that. But nothing prevents you from volunteering under any circumstances to finance as a gift the cost of any fencing.
it will be taken care of.
And, you know, the other thing is maybe when I ask John Doring, you know, in terms of use down there, because you're there every day, with Stake 38 not being open, do you see anybody parking here?
No, I don't see many people parking back there. There was some construction
Yeah.
guys parking back there, but no, it's been vacant for a while.
Even in the summer, you see anything?
I believe there was some cars back there from Fish Vine.
Right. But not, I mean, there were open spots.
Correct.
Okay. You know, interestingly enough, as you know, Mike, with parking, we have a municipal lot across the street, and I know it has a lot of municipal stuff in there and some employee parking, but people don't like to walk. You know, it's if they can't park right in front of the place, we don't see a lot of people parking there and going to the central business district. You know, and we've had signage on that before. We've tried to encourage people to park there, and maybe that'll change if that area gets even more popular.
Yeah. Guys, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
Frank?
Frank Papa, 105 Roosevelt Boulevard North. In reference to the parking spots behind Stake 38, not only do we have other lots, mainly the one down in the center of town, I think that's the only one that we got for the central business district. The lot across the street from the marina, for a year, I've been complaining that the other lots are paying and that lot is not. And at that time, because of painting the water tower, they shifted some of the
people who were paying to park down by the water tower to the lot across from the old community center. Now, that lot is empty. As far as Andy's old boatyard, they should be paying because they put all their merchandise on their parking spots and then use the parking lot across the street. Now, the gas station pays, the fish finder pays, and when I was at Stake 38, we came to council and we tried to buy the ground. The city council told us no. We could not open the restaurant until we procured the parking spots behind Stake 38. All right, it was quite a bit of an added expense. And the reason they told us if we couldn't buy the ground, it'd have to be put up for auction and everything else. And it would take too long. So we had to go lease it. And we did lease it. And we paid, I think we had a 3-year lease. We had insurance policies made out to the city.
Right. Do you remember how much you paid, Frank?
At that time, we paid $3,000 per year.
Right.
If you turn around and give them parking spots to everybody. Now, when I had my commercial trucks on the island, I couldn't park on the street. I had to get a parking spot. I had to go to the municipal lot and pay. And every contractor on this island that's got a commercial vehicle pays. If we're going to give them spots away and not charge, you're going to have to give every contractor in this town their money back. They shouldn't have to pay either. Now, Mike, I would like to say give them to Mike, but it's not fair to the rest of the taxpayers and the people who are paying and the people who have paid for years. I'm sure that Stake 38 could have used, and it was costing us approximately $15,000 a year off the top for them parking spots. When we were starting to charge for the parking, we were called in, the city didn't like it, and asked us to refrain from charging for the spots because it became an issue within town. So we did. But it's an added expense on top of it. I feel sorry for Mike because he's in a predicament, but everybody who bought that went through the same thing. Now, all of a sudden, we should turn around and give it to him for nothing? I disagree with that. I think that other people pay, the contractors pay. If people have a trailer, they pay. Why shouldn't Mike get away with them spots? He can lease them like everybody else. The building next to Stake 38, where the apartments are and the strip stores, they leased them spots in back of that store for years because when they came in for the approvals, the city said they didn't have enough parking, so they leased them off the city in the back. So what's good for one should be good for all. Thank you.
Okay, Mrs. Phillips.
Ann H. Phillips, 308 27th Street. 2 quick questions. When will the budget be introduced? And 2, what is the status of the negotiations on the expired union contracts?
Well, you're going to have to wait until...
You guys can't answer that. Excuse me.
Well, the budget, we're going to have some budget discussions in the small groups starting this weekend. And then I guess we need the state aid figures and some of that information too. We do have a draft budget that the manager has given us, but we do not have a time frame right now for when it's going to be introduced.
Council's meeting with the auditors Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So we'll have more information.
And will the auditor be available at the next council meeting?
That I don't know. If it's going to be introduced, then certainly he would be available.
Okay, so you're not sure, but it will be introduced one of the meetings in March, probably?
And you'll have to go outside to get your update on the negotiations.
I will find
Excuse-
out, and I'll let you know.
Excuse me,
Okay.
Mayor. I'd like to make a comment, actually, regarding a request that Mrs. Phillips made at the last meeting. And we can ask the city manager when she comes back, but I'd like to ask council to post the preliminary budget after we've all reviewed it on our city website so that the public can see it, review it. I know that every year the public sort of gets shortchanged because they have a little bit of time to react on the budget and making suggestions. And we have a lot of smart people in Brigantine, you know. They may be able to make some suggestions. So I would like council to, you know, make a resolution or, you know, pass the fact that we will put the preliminary budget at the appropriate time once we know what the aid is and once we've had an opportunity to review it on the website so that the public can
Okay, is this
can review it.
before or after it's introduced?
Before.
Before.
I've already
Before.
spoken with the manager
That was
about
the
this.
point of, yes, getting it
And
before, yeah.
she will post the preliminary budget on the website prior to its introduction.
Very good, okay, we're making progress here. That's good. Concerning the expired union contracts, these are crucial. We've already keep mentioning the percentage of expenditures in the budget for employees and so on. At the way it's scheduled now, the public is not going to have anything to do with this. You're going to vote on it. City manager will conclude the negotiations, council will vote, and then the public finds out what's in them. I know I brought this up before and didn't seem to get anywhere, but, I just think that leaves the public completely out in the cold and stuck with what is in the contracts. And it's such a crucial issue, and there's so many things that need to be changed in the public's benefit. So again, I place this before you. And what happens to the public here? What happens to the taxpayers in terms of knowledge and having any participation in the process?
Well, I think there's a catch-22 there, because if the negotiations are revealed as they're going on, then they're public negotiations. And, you know, what type of negotiating power exists on either side?
So where does that leave the taxpayers?
Well, I think at some point, the people have to know and trust that we're going to do the best in negotiations that we possibly can. But if there's, say, a consensus in the community, for example, that X, Y, Z should happen, but to the union, it's totally abhorrent, what do you do?
Yeah.
Do you just keep going without a contract? And they can go on ad infinitum if things are public, period, I think.
You know, a major question that taxpayers have, at least the ones with whom I've spoken, and this does touch in a peripheral way on the what you've been discussing in terms of chiefs and Director of Public Safety and so on. How willing are the unions to actually acknowledge the fact that the economy is bad and that people have trouble paying taxes and so on, but yet their benefits and their salaries exceed what's in the private sector? Do we have any, shall we say, movement in the direction of conceding, giving up, acknowledging that there's a problem here and that the public sector unions have gotten a lot, but now it's time to look at giving back, changing things? Because that, I think, expresses on their part a responsibility and a willingness to acknowledge that the rest of the people in the community are not making the salaries they are and getting the benefits they are. And have you seen that?
But first of all,
I
we
think,
don't negotiate,
you know,
all right?
I know you don't
The manager
negotiate.
negotiates, and you can't negotiate in public.
No,
It
I
has to
know,
be-
but-
what I'm getting at, Mrs. Phillips, is I think everyone, and this includes all the city employees and in general, I think everyone is very aware of the realities of today's economy. I I think they're very much aware of the 2% cap and what that means to the negotiation process. And they also don't operate in a vacuum. They belong to larger organizations and they understand what's going on statewide. So, I mean, they're not giving us a declaration in writing that we acknowledge that the economy is not doing well and that the unemployment rate in Atlantic County is anywhere between 10 and 14%, depending on who you listen to, and all the other negative factors that we know of in terms of, you know, what's going on in the regional economy. But I can tell you, they're aware of it. They'd have to be, or they'd have to be living under a rock.
Yes, awareness, however, take the next step and willing to change the direction that they have.
The only way you'll know that is at the end of the day.
That's the problem.
But I think
We're back where we
but
were.
I think in all fairness, okay, the union's sole job is to fight for the best that they can get for their members. That's their job, okay? And even though they don't live in a vacuum, as the mayor said, they know full well, because they have relatives and everyone, their neighbors, have been affected by the economy, okay? They would be tremendously weakening their position to come at it with that stance. That doesn't mean they're not influenced by this, but I think to expect a public acknowledgement is too much, and it's almost unfair when you realize what negotiations are about. The issue is the negotiations are ongoing, they're difficult, hopefully they're forthright, and everyone's bargaining in good faith. That's the best that we can hope for, and that's what we assume until we know different.
And how long will the negotiations continue?
As long as
Well,
they take.
if you knew that, that's, you can't predict these things from the, who knows? I mean, there's a process that's set up by law that the manager's engaged in, and, you know, some negotiations are over in 2 meetings, others go all the way to arbitration, so it's, you never know.
Well, when does the concept of going to arbitration, when does that get considered? How long do you have to have negotiations before you reach a point? Is there a timetable, a timeline, deadline on this as far as the state says you have to do something, or can this drag on for years?
I think when both parts mutually agree they're in an impasse, I don't know if there's a statute of limitations on negotiation.
And there are some negotiations, not here, but in other places that have been going on for years. Jennifer, I don't know if you want to give a status update as to...
Sure. We've been negotiating. We're close to ratification with the Teamsters. And I have to say that they did give a lot of givebacks. You know, it does take some time because negotiation isn't the city coming in and saying this is what you're getting. It's a back and forth to, you know, the whole group. And I am very pleased with what